When I think of psychological horror, it's usually when someone's mind is trying to figure out if things are real or not. Psychological horror has been a thing either in shows, movies, books, and even video games. There's several psychological horror games out there that are really good, or just great how it was handled. I feel like The Suffering was a well-crafted psychological horror based in a prison overrun by creatures, though the main character is trying to figure out what the heck happened in his past. And while there's Outlast, there's Amnesia, and all these other great games, the biggest psychological horror, the biggest franchise which Konami created back during their heyday when they were actually a great company, Silent Hill. Silent Hill 2 is probably the best psychological horror. It is well crafted in its storytelling and how it pieces things together, but it's mostly a show don't tell scenario. And it is an awesome game. I really like the second Silent Hill. Probably my favorite in the series. While the others are great, they are psychological in their own way, the second one was well done with the psychological horror aspect. Lately, there is a specific game that I played that is psychological horror. And it kind of reminds me a bit of Pan's Labyrinth, Del Toro's movie Pan's Labyrinth, which has kind of the same feel, but it's very different. Yes, I am talking about Martha is Dead. Hello and welcome to this new episode. Yes, today I'm going to be reviewing a particular game that was pretty interesting. It kind of reminded me a little bit of La Llorona, in a sense. Okay.
La Llorona? La Llorona?
See, clone number 4. La Llorona. Or, yeah. La Llorona. If I'm even saying that right. Spanish ain't great, but you know what I mean, clone number 4. Is it calm down now?
What did you say? To get him all riled up.
All I said was La Llorona. Is it calm?
Yeah, he's calmed down. Would you stop saying that?
Alright, I won't say it again. Anyways, yes, I'm going to be reviewing Martha is Dead. It's a Wired Productions video game, and it's also a walking simulator. Maybe it may not be your thing, maybe it will be, who knows. But it is also a very disturbing game, but we'll get to that as I dive deep into this review. Let's go.
Put the new film in.
So the plot follows this young woman who is describing her story to the camera, pretty much, or just whoever's visiting her. She tells her story. It starts off before the main plot begins of when she was a little girl, her nanny watching over her. She's staying at her house. She reads her the story about the white lady who appears in a lake. This dark story talks about how this lady died by her lover because she cheated on him, and he was hanged for it. This was a sort of vibe I got from the you know what. Don't want to say it because of clone number 4. But that's how I felt. Anyways, jumping years later, as a young lady, Julia, she's taking photos in an early morning time at the lake, and she sees a body floating. She goes over there, jumps into the lake, swims over there to save this person. She finds out it's her twin sister, Martha. She has drowned, and whoever killed her remains a mystery. However, she takes this, I guess you would say, a necklace thing from her neck that has her name, puts it around her. Since they are twins, they look identical. She goes as Martha, as her life, Julia's life, has not been great in the household, as her mother despises her, but her mother likes Martha. Yeah. Messed up family, I would just say. Anyway, she takes Martha's identity. And at this point, while everything's being prepared for the funeral, and her mother's just bashing on Julia, who thinks is dead, but really it's Martha, and boy, yeah, it is messed up. Julia will try to figure out who murdered her twin sister. While during that, the Second World War is raging on in the background. She is also a daughter of a German general.
So we're pretty much seeing a different viewpoint in the war, the Axis side, except of a daughter trying to solve a mystery while her dad is doing stuff during the war. However, as the story progresses and you walk around, you find stuff, you're going to find more information on the plot, and then there's a lot of stuff that happens. Twists and turns, but that is all I'm going to say. I like the fact that it's also set during a historical time like World War II. That's one of my favorite subjects. And I felt like this was kind of an interesting take on a viewpoint. You're following this young girl during the war on the Axis side, listening to radio reports, reading the newspaper, and vice versa. So I found it very interesting and unique. The graphics is actually not too bad. It does look nice for a very small production game. Now, the gameplay mechanics, like I said earlier in the beginning, it's a walking simulator. You go around, you investigate, you could explore pretty much an entire area, but you're only exploring this area, both the lake, your house, and a little bit of a funeral area. The environments are nice. You have to go around, find evidence of what happened. Also, you take photos. You get to learn how old cameras worked back in the day. And since I'm a photographer, this was pretty interesting. Aperture, shutter, f-stops, what light comes in the camera, what doesn't, lenses, filters. Interesting. And yes, you do have to go around, sometimes take photos when the story requires. But also you might find some more information and do the objectives. I will note you do need to kind of explore around and do stuff because I missed some stuff. Even this subplot during the midst of the main plot. Overall, it's a pretty simple game when it comes to just walking around and doing stuff, except when there was one point where I had to do a mission and use a telegraph and decode it. Don't know much about telegraphs. So I was a little lazy. I did look up what you do or like what you put in, but I know they do show how to decode it. So it's pretty interesting. It works your mind. And there is a lot of details in this game. Heck, you would be going in certain areas, you see either war remnants or just beautiful nature. And of course, there are points where you have to go develop film in the dark room. Once you develop them, you create them, and of course, since this is a game, they speed it up. And I will say the game is not that long. It's not long at all, but it still was able to get me into the story of Julia and trying to figure out what happened to her sister. I will say this story is pretty disturbing with both self-harm, suicide, and of course, stolen identity, mental issues. Heck, I was starting this whole beginning of the year with just that. I wasn't consuming just this and just other stuff that was going on in life. Is like, man, what a sad way to start off this year. I will say on the PlayStation version, they did censor it. Though on Xbox or PC, I believe, but mainly Xbox, they don't censor it. Now, you do have the option to skip specific scenes that are gory and very disturbing or may cause PTSD for any individual because this game does go into a lot of dark stuff, especially about self-harm and mental illness or mental issues. And just, yeah, some stuff I could sort of relate to because I have some issues OCD wise or other stuff, but yeah, it may bother some people that are really sensitive, and this is one of those games. The music in here is actually pretty, what's the word? Kind of catchy, but also melody in a sense, but also dark at the same time. It actually really fits this environment well, especially in a World War II backdrop. And of course, as you continue through the game, you do read notes that may give you some intel on what Julia's thinking, or just informations on stuff that's going on. Most of the time, Julia reads these notes. But also, she has notes in her own book, which, well, like I said, goes through what she's thinking. Well, no, there is a few issues, though, because you can't really go to certain areas because they're blocked. Heck, you could hop around something, but no, in here you can't. You have to go around in certain ways. So that's kind of a con there, because they have to add invisible walls somewhere. And I can tell you this, there is a lot of messaging in this game. It just puts you in this sort of like psychological situation. It's a show don't tell. But once you start playing through the plot and things start to kind of like click, then you realize, oh, here's the bigger picture here. And pretty much I could kind of say this is kind of a combination between, I would say, Fatal Frame and Silent Hill. You take the photos, sometimes you might see something, and of course, psychological. That's how I gotta say. As for my enjoyment, I actually did enjoy this game plot-wise. I mean, we don't always have to have like multiplayer type games. I mean, I like good stories. This was actually a good, well, it was an interesting story. I don't know if a lot of people will like it as much because of the content it has in this game. It was not bad. I actually really did enjoy the story, especially that it's set during a historical time, like the Second World War. But I understand that it's also disturbing at the same time. So yeah, just be prepared for that if you decide to play it. Now, when it comes to the censored stuff, I would say I would play the uncensored because there's more plot. It shows more of what's going on, I guess. I think the censored stuff may leave out stuff. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah.
A German tank. I have to report its location via the telegraph hidden near the cowshed. Daddy probably asked for a garrison after all that has happened.
Well, Martha is Dead was a unique game. It's not long, and for a game like this that kind of feels more like an indie type game, I would say it was actually pretty decent. However, I don't think it's for everybody because of the stuff that it shows in here, like I mentioned. It is a very dark game, especially during the Second World War. Can you imagine a lot of people that had mental issues during that time? This kind of just fits with that. A global war, and it kind of gave me the same type of vibe that I had when COVID was going around. I had a lot of mental issues when all this was happening, when we were shut down. However, though, there's a lot more plot to what's going on. So I don't want to say anymore. And I would say for this game, I would say it is decent, but disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised. If you want to play this game, I would say yeah, but if you're squeamish, then it ain't for you. Personally, I did enjoy it. I thought it was a decent game. And it makes me want to play more storytelling games like this. Because it was pretty good. Well, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you liked what you saw here, follow me or just subscribe wherever you're watching. Anyways, peace.